Okay, good morning. My name is Holly Herrera, and I'm the board administrator for today's board meeting, October 5th, 2023. This is a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. I want to note that the board members and staff have a copy of today's agenda, the past draft minutes from June 1st, July 6th, and September 7th, and the 2023 meeting scheduled for the year. And just a reminder, speakers, please speak up so the owl can pick up your audio. Madam Chair Stevens, we're ready to begin.
Okay, thank you. All this meeting to order, and I start with introductions and welcoming our new board members, Bill Brock, Jeffrey Pritchard, and Jim Knight. So welcome. We're happy to have you on the board. Congratulations. And today's your official first day. Very good.
Exactly.
Holly, would you like to do roll call?
Yes. So roll call, Captain Stevens,
Present.
Bill Brock,
Present.
Jim Knight,
Present.
Sarah Lucas, Jeffrey Pritchard,
Present.
and looks like we are at quorum. Chair Stevens, roll call is complete.
Item on the agenda is it's been a while, so it's board meeting minutes from June 1st. Meeting minutes from July 6th, 2023, and the work session meeting minutes from September 7th, 2023. So right now I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes from June 1st, July 6th, informational and executive session, and September 7th, work session as presented. Aviation.
Second.
All those in favor? Right, and Holly, I think we've got a guest online for this. Thank you for bringing this. Welcome from the Chief Aviation Officer, Dan Pickinger. And Dan, hang on 1 second, we can get you up on screen just so we can see here.
Is Dan, I don't see Dan logged in yet.
Okay, we can come back to that.
And it's not. Just double checking the attendees here. Okay, we can move forward. I don't see Dan logged in.
Okay, just let us know, please, talk to them at some point. Somebody who just.
That was just Tracy May.
Oh, okay. All right, well then we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public comments.
Okay, so, for the record, public comments, please give your name, your city of residence, and affiliation, if any. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. So first of all, are there any elected officials here who would like to address the board? Right, moving on. Next, are there anybody, let's see, I checked the emails. There's nobody that requested in advance. And then there's nobody on the sign. Public comments, please raise your hand or use the chat function for public comments. Here. Okay, so no further public comments today. We've come to the end of public testimony.
All right, we will keep watching for Dan to pop up. And but meantime, we'll move on to director's updates.
Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and get my presentation up. I think it's Kristen who's doing it. So we'll wait till it clears. There we go. Perfect. Oh, that's the board meeting from yesterday. Oh, no, today's board meeting. Yesterday's work session. Thank you. I scared you for a second. All right, excellent. So go ahead and switch over to the next page. So I gotta say, welcome, Jeff, Bill, Jim. I'm so pleased to have you on our board. You come eminently qualified and with a lot of expertise in your specific field. So I'm tickled pink, and we also, of course, have the form now. Well, you know what I'm gonna do? You give me like so folks on the call know, just a tiny little background, like a minute for each. I'm gonna put you each on the spot.
And please speak up for the L.
Sure, Stevens, is that okay?
That's just great, yeah.
All right, Jeff, you're on the spot first.
Boy. Background is in public safety emergency response. Most recently, I've been heavily involved with uncrewed aircraft systems and how they're implemented and used locally, regionally, and nationally. I have involvement with the National Wildfire Coordination Group and one of their subcommittees, with the Law Enforcement Drone Association, and of course, regionally with our Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization. Our agency is one of the few agencies around the country that has a statewide waiver, or I should say 3 statewide waivers related to uncrewed aircraft systems. And I'm happy to be a part of this really important group. Thank you.
You're being modest, Jeff. Jeff is a nationally recognized expert on public safety and drones. In fact, he speaks at a lot of conferences. And one of the more interesting things he did, he was out in Lahaina and Hawaii mapping a few weeks ago, right? So he's a nationally recognized expert on public safety. So he's a great asset to our organization. All right, Bill, you're up.
Right. By day, I'm semiconductor engineer for Siemens EVA out of Wilsonville, and been in that industry for a long time, over 40 years. But in my public service work, I was elected official for over 10 years, including being a mayor and a school board member, and on state level with public education, leadership at a state level, done a lot of work, mainly in equity and inclusion, but also have a lot of work in aviation.
Exactly, and you're tied in the League of Oregon cities and know pretty much all the mayors across the state. So, right? So thank you, Bill. Jim, you're up.
So, how I got here was really my work that was accomplished during the time from 2017 to 2019, and chair as the Aviation Review Committee. It was first chair and continued that position until earlier this year in February. What got me there was our membership in the Northwest Act of Area Commissions on Transportation. I served on that board for a number of years during my tenure as executive director of the Port of Astoria. Prior to that, I was the internal director for the Port of Olympia. So I have a lot of experience in intermodal transportation, security issues, both in the Puget Sound and in the Columbia River. I also am a senior consultant for Special Districts Association of Oregon. And a lot of this part is that I specialize in working with boards and executive directors and helping them solve problems. Typically, what I'm assigned to do is to do an assessment of an organization with key points of oversight for boards. So, I think I know that was more than a minute.
No, that was perfect. And don't forget you're an expert on resilience as well. That's one of your passions.
That's absolutely right. So I was really involved in emergency management at both of the boards. Usually the first things like capital costs. What do we need to do in order to prepare ourselves for the worst possibilities? We'd like to continue that way. The real focus on coastal communities.
Thank you so much for bringing your expertise to our board themselves. And I hope you all enjoy your terms as well. We'll do our best to make it so.
Well, the food's good, so.
Great. All right, next slide, please. So, as folks know, we've had a big hole in our planning and programs. We haven't had a manager since April or earlier, and we've been going on a search. Had one fail, and we've just been having a lot of issues, but we did find somebody. Unfortunately, she's not in the room right now, but hit next. And then hit next again. There's Alex. Alex Thomas is now our planning and. So big congratulations to him. We filled a hole that's been there. And Echo, you good? Awesome. We accidentally got some feedback, so apologies. But Alex Thomas, our new planning and programs manager, and he's taking over program. And we have a great staff in that section. So we're really excited to see what possibilities he's going to bring and the work that he's going to do. So I wanted to announce that. All right. So there we go. Perfect. One of the things that we're going to be doing is we're applying for a US DOT SMART grant. And the SMART grant is really and for the board members, because a lot of this is going to be very familiar from the work session yesterday, but it's a DOT SMART grant for advanced technologies. And our application deals with electrifying flight schools. We're choosing 2 locations. Our flight school is going to be in Hillsborough that we're choosing. And the reason why is it's one of the largest flight schools in the United States. When you think of flight schools, you think about the number of flights that happen at flight schools as well. And they're single piston or a piston engine aircraft. So they use very low lead aviation fuel, produce greenhouse gases, and they produce a lot of noise around airports. So I figured, hey, why not apply for a grant that will help electrify these locations? And that will do 2 things, especially not only for the flight schools in terms of a reduction in the cost because electricity is cheaper than aviation fuel, but also for the surrounding communities as well, because you're looking at eliminating lead. You're also looking at less greenhouse gases and changing the noise profile. And then if you do the infrastructure right, you can also account for multimodal charging and then create as well the infrastructure for advanced aviation. So you get 3 things, right? Benefits to the surrounding community, benefits to general aviation, and then preparing for the future as well. So you're knocking those out of the park. So next slide, please.
Dan's.
Oh, okay. Dan's out now. So let's go ahead and share. Shall we switch over to?
Yeah, let's step back for just a moment in the agenda, and Dan is reading. Frozen.
Dan, are you ready to present?
There we go. Hey, Dan, can you hear us?
Present might be a strong word.
Well, we can hear you if you can hear us.
Good
Thank
to
you for joining. We'll just turn it over to you. I have on the agenda that you'd like to welcome us to the Hillsborough Airport.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Pippinger. I'm the director of PDX. My official title is the Chief of Aviation for the Port of Portland. So that includes Hillsborough and Troutdale as well. And I'd just like to welcome you to our facility at Hillsborough. And I just wanted to, I guess, make a couple comments besides introducing myself and welcoming you. First, on my mind right now is the tragedy that happened just the other day with the flight training flight out of Hillsborough. I'm in a process of actually meeting all my frontline teams this month, and I remind them that the most important thing we do is keep people safe, right? It's airfield safety, it's terminal safety, it's whatever we can do to support the airlines or our FBOs to keep air travel as safe as possible for everyone. And it's just unfortunate that happened, and certainly our hearts go out to the victims, but also the students there and the company as well, Hillsborough Aero Academy. I guess the other, moving on, I'll just mention that, as the Port of Portland, like, we see ourselves as a gateway to the state of Oregon. And I just wanted to reiterate, I'm sure you hear it from Steve Nagy, our support of the state aviation system at the Department of Aviation, the State Aviation Board. And we are most interested in supporting you and also partnering with you on a number of things, which, I was able to pop in just for a moment and see that you were talking about the electric charging infrastructure possibly at Hillsborough. And I wanted to reiterate our willingness to partner on many fronts, whether it's directly a benefit to us, but also to you. We have very big staff and a lot of expertise, and happy to bring that to bear in assistance to others. I think you'll note, again, I think I caught a little bit of this, unleaded avgas is a big priority for us, as well as sustainable aviation fuel. I'd love to see kind of a statewide effort around that. I know all of us want to get there, but it's hard to get there when we don't control the fuel supply of the distribution. But having a statewide strategy for that, I think, would be a really welcome approach. And I'm guessing my fellow commercial airports would agree with that also, because we're at the end of the fuel pipeline when it comes to how fuel is distributed. And lastly, I'll just mention that we're doing a lot of investment here at PDX and at Hillsborough, not quite as much at Troutdale. I won't go into all the projects other than to note that in May of next year, we will do the phase 1 opening of our new terminal at PDX. That's a $2.15 billion project. I think our community is going to love it. And I'd love to invite the State Aviation Board to come out around that time and visit and get a tour of it and enjoy it. So with that, Catherine, I'll turn it back over to you, or if you want me to take questions, I can do that too. Whatever works for you guys.
All right, thank you so much, Dan. We appreciate your welcome and the update on the port.
Thank you, Dan. Good to see you again. First off, thank you for allowing us to use your facilities. It's been a fantastic place to hold our meeting, and the port has been so generous in terms of giving us access and taking us on a tour of the facility as well. So we appreciate all that you've done. And of course, it's a fantastic partnership, and we look forward to expanding that partnership as well, and working very closely together on a number of projects going forward. So thank you so much.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Kenny. Okay,
So shall we-
I'll keep your hair. You guys have a lot going on, unless you wanted to ask me something. I couldn't tell. Okay, see you later.
All right, thank you.
Yep, bye-bye.
All right. Yeah, apologies for the connection. We'll continue forward. Okay. Kristen. Is the presentation ready to go back up? It's looking blank.
Yes, I have it up. Are you not seeing it?
Oh, it happened.
Sorry, you're cutting out. Are you not seeing the presentation?
We don't see it popped up. It's a dark screen.
It looks like she has it shared.
Yeah.
It's not.
Our connection.
You know what? It's our connection
It's our
because
connection.
Oh, is it apparent?
it's showing to the public.
Okay, perfect. If that's the case, we can definitely continue. So we talked about the electrification, right? So that was stage 1 of the US DOT SMART grant. Our hope in a stage 2 is really looking at how to expand beyond just those two airports, because what we want to do is create a regional connection network with electric aircraft, and really leveraging existing infrastructure. So you think about what's existing, a lot of GA airports. And then if we can electrify those GA airports, we can suddenly create these connections all around the region. And I'm not just talking about Oregon. I'm also talking Washington. I'm talking about Idaho, Nevada, Northern California. Because we're all a region, and if we connect them all, we have some tremendous economic opportunities as well as workforce development opportunities. So if you have that electrification for GA aircraft, you also have that electrical infrastructure for advanced air mobility, which is not just carrying people, which is a great thing. One of the great use cases is those regional connections. Like I spoke to you yesterday, we can connect Pendleton to Ontario, to Boise, Tri-Cities, back to Portland, Salem, Eugene, Medford, you name it, Redmond, everywhere in between. You can start connecting communities. And if you connect those communities, you increase commerce as well. So there's just so many benefits by putting in infrastructure for general aviation that also supports new technologies. All right, next slide, please. As I noted yesterday, we used to have a UAS task force. That went away for a couple of years for a number of reasons, but we're bringing it back because it's important to bring together private industry as well as public bodies, as well as stakeholders in the community. We need to create a clearinghouse for information and create opportunities for collaboration. We all know getting together in a room fosters communication. You get to meet people in person, you get to bounce ideas off each other. Like yesterday, Jeff and I had an opportunity while eating dinner. We said, hey, what do you think about having drone in boxes at airports to help out with inspections, to increase our KPMs on our airport inspections? Like, wait a second, that might work. So it's these sort of great ideas that come from collaborating, bringing diverse sets of partners with new ideas that's really going to drive aviation forward in Oregon. And not only that, we can see what the roadblocks are to the industry, as well as what can be done. Can we work with the legislature and policymakers to figure out policies that not only protect Oregonians, but also drive innovation in our state? Because we have so much potential in the state in regard to aviation, we need people to come together to make that work. And I think this Northwest Advanced Aviation Task Force will be a key component of that. So next slide. Is it up, Holly? As you can see, oh, perfect, awesome. And then of course, another priority is workforce development. Workforce development is needed. There's a lot of great programs in Oregon. Steve Nagy here, we got a tour of one of the programs that happens at Hillsborough, and it's absolutely fantastic. They work with the Hillsborough Air Show to help raise money, and they got a whole slew of kids moving through a program to become not only pilots, but also mechanics as well. They even have a really cool airplane out there that they get to work on that was done with Horizon Air. So they get hands-on experience that leads a pipeline directly into the airlines as well. And it goes to show you don't necessarily need a college education to get a high-paying job in the aviation industry. So our plan is to put together an aviation education summit in either 2024 or 2025 to bring all these programs together to get better alignment in the state and have these programs share best practices, and also bring in national players such as AOPA, Area, as well as the foundation that Hillsborough works through, to really talk and bounce those ideas. Just like the Northwest Advanced Aviation Task Force, this summit's going to bring together great minds to figure out good ways to bring curriculum into schools and get kids excited about education. My kids excited about aeronautical engineering. So, I see the excitement every single time he hops on Microsoft Flight Simulator and goes, oh, this is really cool. So I want to be able to share that with the kids all across Oregon. So next slide, please. All right. One of the things that we need to talk about, Oak Ridge, that's been an issue, right? We've been talking about how the pavement's failing, it's getting close to failure. Originally, we've been looking for funding, and with the assistance from the governor's office, we found that there might be a funding opportunity through the Economic Development Administration, the U.S. Department of Commerce, and there's disaster grants. Because Oak Ridge wasn't a disaster area, we potentially can apply for up to $30 million in funding. Now, it would be around $3 million for that rehab. But if there's potential for $30 million, we start to think, how can we leverage that funding to create a center of excellence for aviation in Oregon? Pendleton got one, which is amazing, but thinking about wildfire fighting, thinking about new technologies, how can we turn that airport into the airport of the future? Especially for wildfire fighting, because it's already used as a hell base for firefighting. How do we use that airport for economic development for the city of Oak Ridge? It's, I wouldn't call it struggling, but there's opportunities to increase the economic investment as well as workforce development in that small community. And we talked with the U.S. Department of Transportation, also Science and Technology, one of the individuals there. We also talked with, we are actually setting up a meeting with NASA and figuring out what technologies can make that the airport of the future. And then if we can get the funding for it, really make that jump and take that airport into 21st century that can become a model for general aviation across the US. All right, next slide, please. So some of these ideas come from other states as well, where we want to be leaders, but at the same time, there's a lot of good information and a lot of good things happening across the United States. So I had the opportunity to attend an ASAO meeting, which is National Association of State Aviation Officials. So they're my counterparts throughout the United States. And a piece of good news, I'm now the Northwest Regional Representative. So I also represent Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Colorado, of all places, Wyoming, and then Montana as well. So I'm now the Northwest Regional Rep. We also start talking about how can we start connecting our states, because it can't live in isolation in Oregon. We have to connect to the entire region and thinking about regional mobility. Like I talked with the US DOT Smart Grant with those regional connections, connecting out to Boise, Helena, potentially, just connecting all these cities across the region is just going to increase commerce, which is a great thing. And then I had the opportunity to meet with the FAA regional administrators as well. I started talking with them about some great ideas. And by the way, Grady Stone, who's our regional administrator, will be at the Obama conference. So that's an absolute fantastic piece of news as well. And then I was able to also participate in the SAO as a presenter on advanced air mobility, and it was a panel on community acceptance. Because all of us in aviation know, unless the community accepts what we're doing, we're going to run into major issues. There's issues with not only the communities objecting to us, but also they complain to our legislature. So if we can engage with the community at an early stage, get them on board, especially with these new technologies that are going to help their quality of life, they can become our advocates as well. So we always have to think about how to make them an ally and increase their participation in what we do. Again, we bring in that workforce development, get kids excited as well. That all plays into community acceptance as well. So, all right. And with that, that is my presentation. I like to keep things quick. So are there any questions from the board?
And now it's finally on.
Oh, now it's finally on. All right. Yes.
Really great. Thank you. I love, we talked about this yesterday, the forward thinking and the strategic direction with the department of thinking.
I also just, I think we as a board want to be, want to speak for all of us, but certainly myself, will be involved in helping both the needs and setting priorities. Also think, there's a lot of change, with those, a lot of change, there's also a lot of things that the agency still has to do, obviously, support senior in that. As we talk about involving new elements, whether it's remote inspections at airports, I think it's good to think about doing it in a methodical process and starting in the pilot program and then maybe doing it post-buy and reaching out and expanding that way. And with a limited size department.
Yep.
And a great staff, but limited, thinking about how to do these new and challenging things, but also in a way that doesn't overburden with your existing workload that you need to do this. Well, so I know you guys will find the balance and you're certainly happy. That's just the guidance I would like to say from my position on the board is these things, when we think about these methodically, maybe starting a little small, getting some success, figuring out how to expand some of these opportunities as opposed to trying to stretch too much too far. They're in great new directions, and it's the direction aviation is going. We need to think about how to do that in a thoughtful manner.
Yep. And to answer that, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that we're undergoing this strategic planning process, to figure out what our priorities are, what we can work on, what rises to the top. And it's going to include all the community members as well. And the board, of course, is going to be a very important part of that process. And we do have a small step. So prioritization is important, but that also means leveraging our contacts, whether they be out in the community or especially the board, since you signed up for it. We're gonna put you to work. But that note is taken well to heart because we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. We want to take the right approach. And I think the approach, for example, with the USDOT Smart Net, right? Starting small, starting at 2 locations, and then slowly spreading out. We need to be making smart decisions because we don't want to go to the legislature and have something go out to the legislature. There's a failure because you spread out too thin. Your level of customer service absolutely fall to the floor because you do too many things. We want to do things right. And part of doing things right is getting your counsel because you have so much, there's such depth of experience right here that any counsel that you can give us as an agency helps us all in terms of making the right decisions and making sure that we don't go too far too. Thank you.
Just to add on to what Steve saying, as we move forward with new terrific ideas and how the things that we can accomplish, if we have a sense of a timeline of new accomplishments, which I'm sure we probably touch within the strategic plan.
Yep.
But keeping us focused, and not minutia, but really key accomplishments and what those expectations and dates, what month, what year do we think that we can get this thing? I think that will help us really stay on track.
Exactly. And that's definitely part of any project planning is we need those milestones. And one of the conversations that I had with the representatives is get some wins, bring that to the legislature. Because we really want to support aviation. And if we can get some of these wins, we're off to the races.
I think the only other comment that might be beneficial to this conversation is when it comes to identifying and highlighting some of those key accomplishments. What's the way we can integrate that into your website?
Yes.
I found it very easy to navigate the website, looking for information on reports that have been published in the last several years. But being able to share that with the public, the users of the airports around the state, around the region. So it's getting us more than just the report. It could be hugely beneficial, especially when you're moving forward with the legislature and asking for support on these programs.
Agree 100%. And Holly and I were just discussing that the other day. Because the website does need some new information, it needs to be updated. And part of that is revamping the website. There's some behind the scenes sort of what I call the digital infrastructure definitely does need work because it's a little bit complicated at the moment. So it's an issue that we are aware of and that we will be working on. So it's just a matter of staff time and making sure that it's done right. It's we say, do things right, planning it careful. And that's also part of our strategic plan as well. So that communications, how do we effectively communicate with our stakeholders in the community? So, thank you.
Talked about this a little bit yesterday during the planning session about the Oak Ridge airport this year. And really great opportunity for a large grant possibility. But I want to make sure that we're mindful that we take care of the runway itself.
Yes.
So it doesn't deteriorate further. So hopefully that will be a fast process and we're not slowly, but there's another step that needs to be happening. In the meantime, we will go for large.
Yep.
Fast.
I have a little bit of information on that, but I'll share it.
Okay. And then my other thought is, we also talked yesterday in the planning session about strategic planning process and trying to see if we can afford that faster by seeing if we can get that price tag within the threshold to get just move forward right. So,
And in terms of that, it was mentioned perhaps bifurcating it or splitting it into two different projects to accelerate that process. So we'll have those discussions with the potential candidates for the student fellow as well. So, yes.
Would it be possible to see, members of the association or strategic planning, what were the elements that they were requesting and potential consultant?
Sure, we can get that to you. Okay.
Questions, comments? I think on the agenda, we are to take a 5-minute break, so I'm guessing people need to get that break right now. So go ahead with that 5-minute break.
You got it.
So, We are back in session, and it's next the agenda is our board program update. Approval of the ASP report to the legislature, so that is. Okay. Let's see.
All right, thank you, Chair Stevens and Aviation Board. I just have a really quick update here for you. All right, so our first update is our cycle 8 of the planner application.
Great.
It's right.
It's okay, okay.
Yep.
Is starting this Monday on October 9th. The application period will run from October 9th to the 27th. And additionally, Alex and I will be providing our annual application training at the Oregon Airport Managers Association Conference, which is coming up this October 8th through 10th in Newport. We will also, of course, be posting our training slides, and we also have a training video for our grant website on the ODA website, so all that information will be available there if you're not able to attend the law conference. And then next, let's have a little information on the inspections.
Yeah, so for inspections, so I've been a little bit, behind the last couple of years, because I'm really doing COVID. So over the spring and summer, we visited. Right now, we listed off 58, it's probably a couple more than that, since the slide was updated. And we closed a total of 62 grant projects. And then except for one remaining grant in Klamath Falls, that's the only one that's left. It's been closed. That will still need to go. And we'll plan kind of a mini tour around the Klamath Falls area. When we go to that, probably likely will be in spring. And then at all of these airport visits and inspections, we continue along for most of them, and we've done plenty of ground and drone photos. It's been great to have Kenji on the drone to get dozens of aerial photos. He's laughing, but they've been great, and the airport's been very appreciative. We supply the list of photos to the airports too on the place. Okay.
And then we have our annual ASAP legislative report. This is a report that's required for House Bill 2434 from the 2021 legislative session. And basically, it's just a summary of the ASAP projects from the inception of the programs back in 2017. This report is required to be submitted to the Joint Committee on Transportation by September 15th every year. Typically, we would present this to the board for approval at the August board meeting, but since we didn't have quorum, it got pushed to this meeting. And so this report was provided in the board packet, and we just have a request, Chair Stevens and the Aviation Board, that this report will be approved as presented.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrea. Yeah, do we have any discussion or questions on the ASP?
And I just like to thank you guys for the work of the grant program, seeing how efficiently you're going to process and goes out. Really show the legislature that this program is essential and well managed. So
And I will just add that from my own staff feedback, and the program had some cumbersome elements in the past, and those have really been all alleviated. So they really work around that. It's very much appreciated. I'm sure staff all across the state are managing these programs. Okay, so with that, I am looking for a motion for the state aviation board to approve the report submitted to the legislature for House Bill 2434. Second, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, on to the next. Very efficient today. The ASP rule amendments, and this is also.
Actually, I'm looking for the cases.
Okay.
Yes, it's not a thing.
So for Oregon Administrative Rule 738-124, that is our aviation system action program rule set. There's about 16 or so different divisions within that, and that covers anything in our ASAP program, from what an application is, what a grantee is, our SOAR program, previously Civil War program, and Andrea and I are going through the process along with POJ to review everything in 738 administrative rules, and just everything from providing further clarification of clear definitions, simplification of our ASAP programs, including performance sewer. And one of our primary focus at the moment is in Administrative Rule 738-124, Article 45, Section 3B. It's around our project administration. And currently with their priority one grants, those are for a match for an FAA grant. And the FAA allows an airport to submit requests for reimbursement for work that was done prior to delivery and signing date. So basically just next to match that. So currently we cannot, whether we not submit anything to us for reimbursement prior to its execution date. And generally, the first opportunity for that is in February, but sometimes work is done first. So, and this would again only be for those priority one grants to match it. Is what will change anything with our priority two or three grants. And just to read kind of an excerpt from what the rules specifically states, is only project costs incurred on or after the effective date of the agreement are eligible for grant funds, with the exception of the priority one grant match projects as defined in Section 38. Section 5B, as long as all other applicable FAA grant requirements have been met from the screen. That's our draft that we would like to propose to have filed as a temporary rule. And do so as soon as we can. So, for better preparation for moving into site boy. This is something we can discuss with grantees, that if they're priority on grant, they would be able to submit it prior to actually being able to send it.
Speak of the public hearing. Thank you. Right. I just got notification that they.
So I go back through all of it.
No, you're fine, but just speak up. Thank you.
So what we're looking at the bottom of the screen in section B, there only project costs incurred on or after the effective date of the agreement are eligible for grant funds, with the exception of priority one FAA grant match projects. OAR 738-124-0060, section 5B, as long as all other applicable FAA grant requirements have been met. So the request here is to have this filed as a temporary rule to allow us the opportunity prior to execution date, which generally doesn't happen until February or March.
So is this rule been done by FAA?
No, but
No,
it has been.
I know that it's, this is a Oregon statute, but I just wanted to make sure that FAA doesn't have any problems with reimbursement.
So we have not run it through FAA. We are working with DOJ on it. There's no requirement that we need to run it through FAA. This is a working part of the aviation grant program. But we can definitely, reach out and make sure they're kept in on this change. And the request now is as a temporary rule. And it can only remain temporary for 180 days. The idea would be, once we continue to work through this process throughout the fall and winter, because we have a more finalized rule, all of our staff rules to follow for permanency later. The effective date, ideally, like February 1st. Questions?
So there's
Yeah.
requests.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed temporary rule for the ASAP grant as presented.
Andrew would like to.
Sorry, I just wasn't sure if the chair, I mean, if some else thing.
I don't think I wrote nothing, so I think about that. Okay. Yeah, but we can, we have a motion in a second. And if there's any further discussion, I would just say from your part, if you're in the airport, first from the state, this probably does help align things better with our FAA grant cycle. So, and there's a temporary rule that gives us time to make sure that we make tweaks and the final rule maybe we can still make tweaks, but I think this is one step that's, I took great step to need to find that process. As a bit better.
There's something, for the record, for me.
Second.
Okay, there's no further discussion.
Just one, I just hit me just now was that in the grant application, there's a question that asks if you can move expenditures before. You can't remember the exact language, but that question may need to be rephrased.
Yes, we're already working, as soon as this is approved, then we will have our great software. Updates. Is there an all rules or any ways?
We haven't done that.
Okay.
So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes. Okay, and then we will move on to item 9, which is board approval of the 23 to 25 legislatively approved budgets. And that is that. You know, Beth for us.
Okay, great. I have my slides up. Can you see them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so today we are going to, I'm going to give you a summary of the 23-25 legislatively adopted budget, and then you'll vote on it at the end. In your read aheads, you also got the full budget. So it's over 500 pages. So I know you probably didn't get a chance to read the whole thing. But I did put in the table of contents, I put jump tabs on there. So you can click on the certain pages that you want to read and jump to them. And it has a lot of good information on it. So if you haven't got a chance to yet, that's a good thing to check out to get good background on the agency. Okay, so here is a summary of the budget of what you're voting on. So I have this broken down into program areas. So operations, other funds, that is the main source of our operating funds for the agency. So that pays for the majority of the employee costs of the agency. So of that $6.2 million other funds, about 56% of that is for employee costs. And so the rest are for costs for operating the state-owned airports. And then costs such as all of our travel expenses go there. The strategic planning project we're talking about will come out of those funds. And then let's see. So then we have aircraft registration, which is funded by other funds, revenue from that program. Pavement maintenance, other funds of about 2.2 million, and that is all funded from fuel tax. The general aviation program is funded 90% by FAA grants, and the 10% match is from aircraft registration. And so that program is all of our smaller projects. So any of the projects that we're doing at the airports that are under $1 million come out of that program. And then we have the ASAP program, which is a little over $14 million other funds. And then capital construction, I'm going to go in a little more detail of what projects we're funding for this cycle. And airport construction projects also, I'll go into detail of those. So we're looking at the total budget is 2.4 million of general funds, 25 million of other funds, a little over 20 million of federal funds, so a total of over $48 million funds. And here's a graph so you can just see the different program areas so you can see how they stack up towards each other. So in this graph, I've combined the other funds and the federal funds, and then also the general funds. So I have abbreviations over here. So this is capital construction, the airport projects program, AC is the aircraft registration, PMP is the pavement maintenance program, ASAP, you can see that is our largest expenditure for the agency. And then OPS is for operations, and GA is the general aviation entitlement program. Okay, so this next slide shows you what projects we're funding for this budget. And so in the budget document, it gives you a lot more details about these projects. So we have the Cape Blanco runway rehab. So that is the general funds for the budget. So it's about $2.4 million. And that is the only general funds that we have in that whole budget is specifically for that project. Then we have the Aurora State Obstruction Removal and Easement Project. And that one is actually the rest of the projects that I'll list are all funded 90% with federal funds and 10% with other funds. And so the other fund portion we fund with aircraft registration revenue. So that project is about $1.5 million. And then we have the Aurora State Runway Rehab, which is about $2.7 million. We have the Chiloquin State Obstruction Removal, which is about $1.3 million. The Cottage Grove EA and Apron Rehab is about $1.6 million. And then we have the Lebanon State Reconstruction is about $5.2 million. And then I always think it's a good perspective to see this budget compared to our last budget in the last biennium. So each of these budgets is for 2 years. So you can see in this budget, this top graph here is showing you capital construction. So in blue is the current budget. So you can see we put a lot more projects in this budget than we did the last biennium. AP is the airport projects budget. So that is a new program this biennium because this is the first time we're receiving general funds for a project. Aircraft registration, that budget always remains pretty even. So that's basically just funding one full-time employee to run the program and then just office expenses for the program. The pavement maintenance program, that one stays pretty consistently, like right around $2 million. The ASAP program stays pretty consistently over about 14 million. Operations is pretty close to what it was last year. So those are the total funds there. So those are the federal funds and the other funds. And then the GA entitlement, this budget was a little bit smaller. So we have a little bit less of our small projects in the budget. And that's just because we have a lot more of the larger projects in this budget. Okay, so the next slide gives you an overview of the revenue for a budget. So you can see the two main revenue sources are our fuel tax and our federal funds. So those two together make up over 80% of our budget. And then, like I already stated in this budget, we do have general funds, which is 9%. Normally that is 0%, and that's for that one project. And then the other remaining about 9% of our budget is made up of various fees from airports, our aircraft registration fees. We have land lease fees, access fees, tie down, fuel sales. So it's a lot of our airport revenues that make up about 9% of the revenue for the budget. Okay, this next slide is showing you our org chart. So as part of the budget, you're also voting on our employees or approving our employees. So in this budget, we put in a total of 16 employees, and that is 5.33 FTE. And the reason it's 0.33, we have one grounds maintenance worker in the operations department. That's a seasonal position. So we hire them for just a few months every year. So it works out to be 0.3 of the FTE. And so in your org chart, you can see we have the 3 different program areas. So on the left, we have the planning division. In the middle is the operations department. And then on the right is the budget and admin department. And so for this budget, the only change in our positions from our last budget was the planning manager. We did a reclassification of that position where we bumped up the classification a little bit. And we did that when we were hiring just so we could get a better recruitment on that position. Okay, so that was the total summary of the budget. Before we vote, let me know if you have any questions on anything. This is just the summary slide that shows you what you're voting on.
Chair Stevens, board, I want to tell you, Kristen put a lot of work into this. You look at the sheer volume of information that's in there. This took a lot of time and she did a fantastic job. So Kristen, great job on that. I think we deserve a little round of applause from everybody on board. So good job.
Thanks, Kenji.
Thank you.
So I actually did read the whole budget book. Yeah, I did. So, you know, I know holes in that way, so that way, that's too. I did have a couple of questions for you, but I want to see if anybody else from the board had any questions. Okay, and just a couple of points of clarification, so, you know, this is a huge document, and I know a lot of times there's carryovers from the year prior that, sometimes we just need to go back and take a look at, you know, certain things we can carry forward. So my first question, and I sent these to you, so, and you did reply back, so I do appreciate that. But I know, on page 205, there's support for the Aviation Industries Cluster Organization. And I just wanted some clarification of what support we've been providing to our Raleigh and just to continue to manage expectations around that in our budget. Have any comments on that?
Oh, yes. So when we originally put that in the budget document, about 2 bienniums ago, we were a member of the organization. So we were supporting them with funds and with presentations. And so in this biennium, I'm not sure if, I actually believe that Kenji said we're no longer a member of the organization. So that might be something that we remove that line item from the budget that says that we support them. I think the most has been presentations that we've provided for the organization in the last biennium.
Great.
Yeah, and we're reassessing all the memberships that we have as well. So that's always good to see whether there's value. Doesn't mean that a Robbie doesn't have value. It's just a matter of we're reassessing.
And my other question was, page 213, attempt to make each airport financially self-sustainable by allocating costs to users. And I'm just wondering what specific actions are in process or under consideration to achieve that.
Yeah, so we do have a lot of costs that we pass on to the users at airports. So we have agreement with firefighting. So we put together agreements that when the airport is used for firefighting, we get reimbursed for that. And then we also have, when I was talking about the revenues, I mentioned a lot of the revenues that some of the airports support, and those are user fees. So such as access fees, tie down fees, land lease fees, fuel flowage, fuel sales. Those are not at all of the airports, but that is some of the revenue from the airports that's passed down to the users.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay.
Chair Stevens, one more thing. Of course, that is also revenue generation is also an important part of the strategic planning process. And we'll be taking more in-depth look at that as well.
I realize we're transition with that
Yep.
new leadership and new strategic plan and all of that.
Yep.
And then I also just want to call out on page 214, the divest airports that have little utility to state aviation system. And I just wanted to clarify if there was anything under consideration at this point, or if that's just been a placeholder in the budget.
No, we don't have any plans to divest any of our airports. But according to statute, the board and the department has the ability to divest airports. And so we put that in there And that's something that could come up case by case basis. So if that's something that we're looking at, that would be brought to the board for approval and to the agency for approval.
And then just to note that, you know, obviously the strategic planning session that we're, we have process that is coming up, obviously it's going to help form, you know, what this budget looks like moving forward as well. So note that. Any other questions, comments? Documents? Okay. Then I'm looking for a motion for the state aviation board to approve the 23-25 legislatively approved budget.
We need to approve the 2023-2025 legislatively adopted budget.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So
Okay,
we
thank you.
move on next. Yeah, thank you, Kristen. Appreciate it. We're moving on to an information session next on some of our state airports measure.
Yeah, good morning. Just gonna share my screen.
Please, please.
Too quiet. I can yell louder. Okay. I think that was the correct one. Okay. So good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. It's been a little while since my last airports update, so just want to fill you in on what staff and I have been working on this summer. This is a photo of the Lebanon State Airport, and I'm going to get to this here in just a second. I've got a few photos I'm going to share about this airport. Look at that picture. That was a Kenji drone photo. So very grateful for that because it really shows the improvement with the new markets here at this airport. Staff have been very busy with mowing all summer long, and this has been a great year for mowing. This has been one of our more productive or efficient years of mowing because partly because we have been fully staffed with our full-time employees. We have had one vacant seasonal position this year, but this is our first time in my time here that we've had a full complement of our operations and maintenance staff. So really big shout out to staff for doing such a good job mowing out of all of our airports. And in addition to mowing, we have taken on for the first time in-house painting on a scale that I don't believe we've done before. Earlier this spring, we have acquired new markings equipment, and thank you to the Southwest Oregon Regional Airport for lending their staff, their maintenance staff, and their expertise for a couple of days to train our staff on how to just use the equipment and how to apply airfield markings efficiently and correctly. And our staff have put that into action. We've painted, I'm counting 7 of our airports here this year, just in the last couple of months. So starting with the Cottage Grove Airport, the most recent was the Lebanon Airport. We've also painted the Malino Airport, Nehalem Bay, and then Tokati, Toledo, and Wakanda this year. And I have to say, after just 7 airports, our staff really have gone down very quickly. So very excellent work by them, and very happy to have this equipment on board. And it's already paid for itself. We paid back in 2020. We paid the cost of this equipment just to have Malino and Independence airports done by a contractor. And we've done 7 and by ourselves, and we're going to we already have a program together where we are putting all of our airports on rotation so that they will not get to the point where the markings are faded or obliterated as they have become over the years. So very excited to add that capability. And we will be adding that again on an annual rotation. We'll be getting all of our airports over a cycle of every 3 to 4 years. So in the spring and fall, when we're not in the peak of mowing season, we will be getting around all the corners of the state and refreshing markings at airports. The airports we have upcoming are Aurora and Independence and Sleds Bay. And Aurora, we have a project and Sleds Bay as well, will be addressed through a project. We are hoping, weather dependent, that we may be able to address Independence this fall. All right, other projects, we had a ceiling project and maintenance project for the air traffic control tower. After 8 years, the tower just needed some maintenance to keep just everything sealed up, and we had some water leaks. So just general maintenance and getting that freshened up and completely sealed with a new groove, new flashings, all the new joints are sealed up, and the tower is looking very good. I'm told that the tower gets sealed a couple of months. This is our new Aurora, yeah. And then I mentioned the new markings equipment. We have a new PAPI for the Joseph State Airport, which we are going to be installing this month, October, and I'll have more information that I'm going to share with airport users on the dates and impacts when we get that equipment installed. We're also looking at, I didn't list it here, but we're looking at AWOS replacement because it is at its end of life, and that we're looking at about 2 years before that becomes eligible for FAA for any maintenance. It's precision approach. Indicator. Okay, thank you. Mostly just use there. So, okay. Also, we have updated our lighted X runway closure markers, and they had old halogen lights that are becoming expensive and hard to find. So we have a new suite of LED lights, and they work great. We've already lent them out to the Scappoose Airport for a runway project that they had, and very happy that they're getting put to good use. Other items staff have been working on, the driver's training program, we are still working on that, putting finishing touches on. We're hoping to implement that here this winter. And then this year is the first year that we have been using our new airport inspection and work order system. And I think that has been working very well, addressing maintenance issues, inspecting all the airports. And I think this is a big part of how our KPMs are increasing year over year for the last 3 years for airport inspections for state-owned airports. And big shout out to Don Rich Creek who put that inspection program together. Also continue to work on airport layout plan, review and updates, and for all of our NIPIS airports. And that's something that Don Rich Creek has also been working on. Volunteer program update. These are volunteer program coordinators. So he's been very busy and he'll continue working on that through this winter. Also 5010 inspections and master record updates. Don has completed all of our 5010 inspections for the year. We get about a third of all public use airports that we inspect every year. And so Don has completed all of those this calendar year. And then, of course, tracking and updating our key performance measures for airport inspections and then approach surfaces, meeting the approaches. And then Kevin, big shout out to Kevin for catching up on a big backlog and workload of our leasing program, overhauling pretty much everything from the way that we're signing leases, entering into new lease agreements, just our billing and coordination with ODOT through financial services, and then catching up on a big backlog of our CPI, our rent escalations, which have not been done in some cases, I think beyond 12 years. So, so addressing our airport revenues and working toward making all of our airports self-sufficient and generating the revenues from those who are using the airports. Also, continue to work on lease compliance, collecting certificates of insurance, and providing notices to all of our lessees We are working on procuring a new lease, management program that will help track all of these things and add efficiencies for Kevin and I to stay on top of all of our 280 some leases.
Chair, you should explain to what NIPI said, because some of the board members.
Sure. Another acronym. So the National Plan of Integrated Airport System is the FAA list of airports that receive federal funding. Is that right?
And then one more thing, tell the board how much we're saving per airport on paint.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we spent about 30,000 painting, hiring a contractor to paint 2 airports one time each. And we spent about 30,000 on that equipment, and that equipment will last us for many years or decades to come. And again, it's already paid for itself. Yeah.
How long does it take to paint a home for like Milano?
Milano,
That size airport?
our staff knocked Milano out in, I believe, just 2.5 days. Yeah,
That's 3 people.
yep. So 3 people, 2 maintenance staff and 1 operations, and they were very aggressive. And I think they were a little sore afterwards that maybe it doesn't, we're trying to minimize impacts to airport operations and preventing extended runway closures, but it's a marathon, not a race.
That's part of the cost.
Sure.
That you're paying.
Sure. Yeah, and that doesn't account for, the materials in the last week, it's shingles, but it is a big value.
Is it a total strip down to the airport when this is happening, or is it partial?
That's partial. So when we prioritize minimizing the runway impacts most, and then we're partially closing the taxiways and apron areas when we're working. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so it was also a great year for fly-ins, and I didn't get to all of them, but this was at the Cottage Grove State Airport, the Oregon Aviation Historical Society. They had multiple fly-ins this year, and this was the Great Oregon Home Bill just early September, and it was a great event. Really excited to see. I always like to see just airports engaged with their local communities and people fly in from all over the state and all over the region to attend, and of course, bringing their kids, exposing them to the wonderful aviation industry. Another photo of the Great Oregon Home Bill fly-in at the Cotton Grove Airport, and then the Joseph fly-in, early July. Very well attended. They had a great fundraiser and then some aeronautical demonstrations and activities. Really a great event. A little bit of delay with the photos, but I'm going to keep chugging along. It was a very busy year for fire activity, like Kenji mentioned. Currently, we have the Cape Blanco State Airport is closed for firefighting activity. They have consolidated 4 different bases to the Cape Blanco Airport, and so the entire airport's closed. The annual fire is, I'm told it's the #1 fire in the U.S. right now. So they are focusing a lot of effort on that fire. And then we also have a partial use of abandoned state airport. We had a number of airports that have been used throughout the summer for firefighting activity, including Chiloquin, Cottage Grove, Crescent Lake, Joseph, McKenzie Bridge, Milano, Oak Ridge, Prospect, Sandy Junction, and Maconda. And as Kristen mentioned, we enter into land use agreements for the use of these airports, and we have looked at our rates and updated those to just reflect more of a current market rate and generating revenue for those airports. Whatever the responding agency, yeah, it's they're all. Okay, so updates on some projects. The rewrite for the Aurora State Airport obstruction removal project still ongoing. The full chapters addressing all of the FAA's comments have been compiled and sent back to the FAA. So that is now back with them. We are waiting for their response and acceptance of the revisions and before they go into the public notice component, and then we can provide further comments and go from there. So we have to complete that process before we can begin appraisals and easement acquisition, which we will do as soon as we close out the EA. At Milano, survey is completed and we are working on contracting for appraisals and easement acquisition for Milano and Chillicothe. And then for the portion, and that's for all of the obstructions, but for the portion at Milano where the trees are on our property or we already have easements for adjacent properties, we are reading the intermediate project to get those trees removed, and we're going to rebid that this month. And our plan is to have those trees removed prior to nesting season in 2020. Other projects, our surface seal project for Aurora is currently out to bid, and we anticipate bid opening on October 12th. We had a pre-bid meeting earlier this week and did have a contractor attend. So looking forward to getting this project out on the ground, and likely going to be constructing in spring or summer 24, just due to weather impacts. And we do want sufficient time so we can notify all the tenants of the runway closure that it's going to be required for phase one of the project, as well as the taxiway apron closures. So that's very likely putting us into better weather, which would be next spring or summer. And just as a reminder, this project will do pavement maintenance and resurface all the state-owned pavement off the runway. So all taxiways and aprons, taxi lanes on state property, and then we'll have all new markings as well. On the Aurora Airport Master Plan, all of the FAA's comments on working paper number 1 have been compiled and addressed, and they've all been posted on the project website. If you Google search, I didn't link it here, but if you Google search Aurora State Airport Master Plan, you'll find the project website and all of the documents linked there. And at this point, we are waiting for the FAA to review all of these revisions and then approve the forecast. And we're anticipating this could be as early as this month. We are hoping that this can be completed before we continue with our next meeting and get into working different too. On Cape Blanco, we are rebidding this currently as well, and we have a bid opening of October 12th. And this was rebid after we initially bid this project in spring, and the bids came in well in excess of the funds we had available even for the base bid, so we could not award the project. We redesigned the project with less paving scope to get the cost down so that we could go ahead and award, and we're looking forward to hopefully constructing that project next summer as well. Yeah, question. What was the change in scope? It was narrowing the runway width about 50%, so from 150 to 70. Okay, on the Prospect project, we are approaching 100% design, and we are planning to bid that project this fall as well. We're looking at November, December, and then again anticipating construction during the spring, summer 2024. So just anticipating some closures, that surface seal project. Again, I don't know what the timeframe of that is going to look like. We are going to provide ample notice for any closures or impacts we're going to have for upcoming projects, and anticipating that will occur anytime between winter of 23 and spring or summer of 24. Again, I mentioned the PAPI replacement for Joseph will be happening this month. And again, we'll provide notice to all the tenants and airport users. And then again, multiple state airports for obstruction removal and then markings as we continue to update all the markings of airports every year. The best way to keep in touch and receive updates from us on any impacts or updates for our state airports is by subscribing to any emails or notifications we send out for gov delivery. This is a link you can find on our homepage at oregon.gov/aviation. And you can click and manage your own subscriptions to emails from us. And you can specify which airports you would like to subscribe to.
That's a lot.
Yes. Okay. We did talk about Oak Ridge State Airport and intermediate plans for preserving and preventing the closure of that runway. So that is one of our priorities, that we are looking at using SOAR funds to keep that runway operational. And we were planning to apply for the most recent Connect Oregon round of grants for a project to rehabilitate the runway at Oak Ridge, and that was postponed. We're looking at, I think that's going to occur next year. And so we have, in June, I mentioned we are forecasting a balance of a little over $1 million for SOAR funds, and by December of this year, and so that will pretty much take up the 30% match required for the Connect Oregon grant, and if it's awarded, and that leaves just enough for our usual airport worker fund and contingencies. And then we are also looking at, with any leftover, continue work on obstruction removal at the airports, the priority airports that we've listed here on this project prioritization. So we don't have enough funding to go and rehabilitate that runway with just our own money, but we are hoping that we can leverage the Connect Oregon funds the same way that we have with Connect Oregon for hospital.
Good question. Seeing as there's been mention that this is used for firefighting in the summertime. With the rehabilitation of the runway, has there also been thought about putting in filters? Knowing that this airport is used a lot for helicopters instead of having a flying route for us.
Yeah, and Oak Ridge, they primarily do land off pavement. A lot of the damage comes from the heavy ground service, fuel trucks, other equipment that drive out there, and that runway was never constructed to accommodate this level of activity or this type of equipment and usage. So being despite maintenance that we've done over the years, it really was not designed for this type of use. And so we have been in touch with the airport users on finding funds, or if they're willing to contribute to repaving.
With some of the obstruction has been never don't check their safety.
It was primarily Cape Blanco, and that was because we were anticipating starting construction this year when we were bidding that project over the spring. And so we did get most of the trees cleared that we needed to, which was a substantial amount for the PAPI, through another acronym, OCS, obstacle clearance service. Which there were, again, a substantial amount of trees there. We did go and clear those earlier before April this year, and that was where the problem was. Just an update on surface incident mitigation at Aurora. I'm very pleased to announce we have not had any DPDs since our last board meeting in June. And thank you, big shout out to all the folks at Aurora for helping spread information and actively working to plan DPDs. We are continuing to work on, again, just implementing the driver's training program and then continued outreach and education to mitigate PPDs or surface incidents. And we will be bringing the same rule that we had been working on for the better part of the year on BPDs, and we are gonna, it's not the same rule, we're bringing the same effort, but with input from the community, from the public outreach processes we've had, from public hearing and all the public comments we've received. So that's primarily focused on reducing the amount of the fine, adding clarity to who a responsible party or person is, and also implementing a driver's training program, which again, we plan to coincide. So that will be coming as a future motion item from the board in a future meeting. One other project that we've been busy working on this summer was just adding more clarity and information around noise complaints and reporting. So on our website, we had, so we were talking about updating our website. We've had some broken links. They went to maybe some old surveys, and people weren't getting the responses that they should expect. So we've updated our homepage with a link for noise complaints. And then that takes you to a new page that explains a whole bunch of information on noise complaints. And so we are adding information that explains the regulatory authority and responsibilities for us and for the FAA, community outreach, and the Aurora State Airport Noise Abatement Program. Information on when or why aircraft operations might operate outside of the noise abatement procedures, and what we do with noise complaints, and more information on how to submit a noise complaint or inquiry for a state or airport authority, as well as the appropriate agencies or places to send inquiries to non-state owned airports. So this was a really great update. We've done some outreach with some of our neighboring communities, sharing this information. I think it's going to be a continued effort to work with them, get everyone together, continuing to talk about some of the limitations and obligations we have by accepting federal funds, and just making sure that people have clear expectations of what we can and are continuing to try to do, but maybe add a little more information on where we can't quite meet some of the things that would.
Is the maximum decibel level allowed, is that uniform across the state, or is that more dependent on local jurisdiction?
So it's getting into FAA Part 150, which the FAA has determined that I'm not sure if I'm gonna say this correctly. The DNO, the day-night level, 65. If you're within that 65 contour or above, then that's an incompatible use or noise level. Anything below is determined by the FAA. We don't have any Part 150 studies for any of our airports, and from the most recent noise contours we have at the Aurora State Airport, there are very, very few properties within it.
And then default to FAA's definition of accepted.
There is a very good.
Well, this is when we're in statute around 55 content, and it's ensuring that your kids understand where they're 55 content, but there's no regulatory requirements to do anything beyond that, perhaps notification. But the 65 is the federal statute. And the feds took that back in 1991. Individually release procedures, and that and said, since planes cross state lines, that's interstate commerce, we are the only ones that are able to do that. So there's some places in facilities that it is what their grandfather did. You fly out and those who know exactly what they're like. Because it's really different. But otherwise, in order to implement anything that the noise-based procedure and policy or change,
You know, because it's very defined, so you have to demonstrate that you have a problem. You have to go through and find, like, what the study to address that, actual regulatory change, anything beyond what the regulations. Been through it many times.
Yeah. Really, our biggest thing is outreach, and we try to coordinate with all the airport users, including the Aurora State Airport. It's the only one we have a published noise abatement procedure, and we encourage everyone to use the noise abatement procedures and follow those to minimize impacts, fly neighborly, and just again minimize those impacts to our neighboring. Okay, and then here is just the information on that we provided on what we need to submit a noise complaint. And we've also added methods to submit noise complaints to us just to add accessibility, where this was not, it wasn't as accessible because there was no clear instructions on how a noise complaint can be submitted to us. Okay, just a reminder, every year seasonally, these 4 airports close starting November 1st and they'll reopen May 1st. When conditions allow, sometimes, in fact, this year we had a couple airports that opened or remained closed later, just due to winter conditions. So again, November 1st, Crescent Lake, Mackenzie Bridge, Sandium Junction, and Tokatee will be closed season. And then also, as we come into the winter season, most of our airports, we do not report surface conditions. For those that do, NOTAMs are for where we are reporting our FICONs, our field condition NOTAMs. And we have very limited plowing capability. We do plow out of the Joseph State Airport, and we have limited plowing capability out of our main office out of Salem. And we do not have any airfield de-icing. We do welcome pilots. And again, feel free to check in with our operations staff for airfield updates and check those locally. So pilot reports, PIREPS is a pilot report. So if you fly into one of our airports, feel free to reach out to us with any pilot reports, and then PICON is the field condition. NOTAM is a notice to air emission. This is a FAA tool for how airports and other agencies publish information permit to air emission for the safety of their flight. Any questions?
I forgot to ask, we need section of you assume you will receive and airport sponsors receive the same letter from the compliance and safety standards about ensuring that state-owned, or excuse me, sponsor-owned visual navigation aids are checked on a regular basis. Yeah, I noticed when you mentioned these in the state-owned ones, so we have a program for ensuring that those are ensuring that they are aimed correctly, and
We do. I can provide more information about that.
so one of like, you know, because obviously you own a lot of, using that, which is like, so just making sure like, compliance with the FAA's reminds you, directives, not really. Because some airports work, because they're providing some airports, so they should. Or all of the things.
If I may make a suggestion for the compliance, if that's a police submitted, rather than just listing what you've preferred. That way, you can, and I obviously it's not sure if it's that way, you're maybe making sure you're catching everything on the first submittal versus
Yeah, so when we were, it's still a work in progress and we are still looking at any updates and tools where we can definitely incorporate something like that. We had a form system and I think one problem was that it just either a link got broken or something wasn't supported. It just wasn't functioning properly. So just keeping up on top of that. But I agree, a form is really useful, but the bullets are listed for the criteria that we're asking for, because we were trying to broaden the different ways that people could reach out to us. Just trying to capture, again, for accessibility for anyone that may not have reliable access to the internet, and just so they can have all the information and report that to us, whatever.
I have a question. So we had a reasonably local complaints about people just asking the local agency to not ask for requirements when they're on free. Since they're quite busy, and so that was kind of there. But when you say you want pirates, so the request there was wait till you're on, wait till you're in the ground to ask for it. What do? You say you want pirates, you welcome pirates. Is that going through the agency or?
No,
have your own
just
way
just
of-
for any of our airports, if a pilot flies in and says, hey, this was a little icy or something that we should be aware of, or anyone.
But to use, to you have some kind of call, or how am I getting you a pirate directly?
Yeah, they can contact call the member information in our master record, or contact any airport sponsor. They can contact me or our operations.
But not
staff
through
directly.
agency.
Right,
Or do
yeah,
they see, they don't pass them over to you, right?
Right.
So I think the confusion is you're using a very specific term for something that a pilot
Right.
would use in a
Sure.
different situation. So maybe I see where you're getting that confusion. You're not actually asking for a pilot, you're asking for a pilot. Or
Yeah.
that.
Yes, yeah, yep, for sure.
The cute Quanto runway, the street that is the, are you currently going to take everything?
We're not gonna remove it. We're trenching and we went through a redesign over the summer to trench for the electrical for the reduced runway. But it's going to, I believe it's only the machines.
And then was a prospect on my, was that already?
No, so that's that hasn't gone out to bid yet, and that project is replacing the current wood and length, except we are looking at, there may be a very minor reduction just to allow for threshold lighting. So there would be a 15 feet on each end, so the organization.
And the reduction of the, that's a state funded completely profit, correct?
Right.
Has FAA reviewed that design? Because typically they're not really favorable about doing the expectations, even if it's recommended. It's not. Okay.
Any other questions for John? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Applicants and report. So if I'm looking at a time check right now, we're supposed to take a lunch break. So I'm just going to go retreat lunch. I'm in favor of just keeping on with our agenda and then perhaps in the early today. Okay, perfect. So we will go into board updates next. And so for our new board members, this is kind of just an info share time where you can talk about your own organizations, what you're working on, generally aviation related, or any other items of interest. You'd like to share that would be pertinent to this board or our aviation community. I would start off by saying, thank goodness we got a bit of a reprieve with not having a government shutdown, and we're about to get a double whammy potentially with not having that FAA authorization and the government shutdown. So as far as FAA goes, for those two things, we've passed and this calendar year. Of course, that's going to come out very quickly. what happens when, either of those two things happen is a shutdown, it really hampers the ability to have our training plan. And that makes it really hard to plan, to put things out for bid. And then as far as reorganization, same thing, just basically we start to really hamper our grant funding. It's just really a challenge to planning the topic. So hopefully we'll have some kind of resolution by the end of the year. But I just want to put that on everybody's radar that things change a lot. So they have wind up looking over it.
That's too sure. The Law Enforcement Drone Association, I had their big conference in Bend last week. There was over 150 attendees from 70 different law enforcement agencies from around the country. Lots of exercises both day and night, which was really nice. Did the first blanket waiver request through the FAA for the remote hiking. The waiver, because there's people from all over the country that did not meet that FAA requirement. That was interesting to go be a part of and see that process happen. Tomorrow, I will be sitting with a group where at the Oregon Mechanical Innovation Center in Scappoose, where 700 high school kids are going to be going through to learn about technology and all sorts of other things, but we're going to ask to be there with small little machines. Next week, we are going to be in Los Angeles. I think that our first vertical takeoff and landing fixed wing drone that is being purchased through the state Homeland Security. One of the things that we're doing in a unique way that most of these grants have never done is we've invited several agencies outside of Scappoose to participate because it is a state asset and it is aviation related. We want to make sure that we can't staff it. Other agencies will be able to go out there. So we have two folks from Oregon Department of Forestry going with us to California to receive the training. Oregon State Police, different law enforcement agencies and fire agencies.
So they just say they get solution.
Well, we're the holder of the aircraft, and basically, if we're unavailable, we will make sure that thing gets driven in an emergency vehicle to where it needs to get to, and then we can have one of these pilots who are going to train to fly there.
Quick comment on that. For a little bit of context in terms of what the Law Enforcement Drone Association is, it's actually one of the nation's largest law enforcement drone organization that pulls in law enforcement and public safety from all over the US. It was actually started in Oregon, so a lot of people don't know that. Josh Goldschmidt out of people who used to be with Portland Police Bureau started it. And it started probably, wasn't it like 2019 or so? Yeah. And then it was the first meeting I got to go to. It was very small, but it's now turned into this organization, organically grown into a very large nationwide organization. And what's unique about this is it gives law enforcement and public safety an opportunity to actually play with the drones themselves, because a lot of organizations don't let them do that. And it also gives an opportunity, again, like we talked about earlier, about information sharing, best practices, how to share information among all the agencies, how things are happening across the US. So it's a great collaboration that came out of a little, what was it, a hangar in Oregon, international organization. So that's just to give a little bit of context of what that organization does.
Just, I would reiterate one of the things that Ann mentioned in his kind of beginning remarks, comments, that's really important for it was critical importance to the and that's really both locally that we're trying to do, as he said, like to try to partner on a more regional or statewide basis. Parties interested in trying to Now that there is a unleaded fuel substitute that is on 100 octane, even though it is not in mass production yet, and doesn't in our conversations, it was not expected to be sometime in well into 2024. But as those products become available, how to solve the most difficult part is going to be solving that supply chain issue from wherever they're produced to this region. And that's for, I'm on fuel product and welding, we talked about yesterday, SAF products will be regionally here. So the more that we can partner and be involved in that, and I know that that's, I'll speak candidly here, that it's still in the hydrocarbon, it's still in the carbon-based family, and so it is moving in an incremental move to a better environmental product because it will not have lead, low levels of it, but it's still burning the fossil fuel. And obviously, we are going to move to the next direction and continue to want to support electrification, but there needs to be interim steps along the way. And so, don't want to say that, certainly, from my agency's perspective, on the partner with as many folks as possible to try and make this product universally available in the Northwest as well as economically viable and competitive in this region as well. So if that's what state airports or other airports regionally that have a large demand for this is fuel, we'll be researching and reaching out to folks in the next months and over the next year as we try to bring this product suitable and signal to her.
Okay. Keep on moving. Other business. So this is the time provided for the board and staff to bring the any topics that are not in today's agenda. Okay. Hearing none. We will move on to agenda input. So a summary of the board direction to staff, the topics of future board meetings. The meeting schedule for 2024. So we will have a schedule moving forward of the topics that we have coming up. We talked about a couple others at our planning session yesterday. Other topics or direction to staff, things that we'd like to hear more.
Just to circle back to the administrative rules, we will, in the future board meeting, have a signature the topic for your review prior to doing an effective time. There's about 16 or so different rules. Some of the changes are very minor, but we'll bring those to attention.
Do you have that room making committee put together already?
No, right now it's just in-house, that's DOJ.
Will there be a lot of information?
This is not coming virtual, it's not required. But certainly.
So, Chair Stevens, and curious, with OS 837, 300, is there only one to do for that one? And is that at the time?
OS with ORS.
Sure, that is the OS that pertains to nuclear aircraft systems. There's been lots of talk in the public safety community about trying to get agreement on those for a wide variety of reasons. One of the points in that ORS affects the staff here in a very unique and odd way. In that when it comes to registration of aircraft, government entities are required to do registration of aircraft. Other professional entities, but what happens with the reporting that comes into permanent aviation, looking at statistics and rules, performance measures, how Is that something that really needs to continue to happen as far as workflow for the staff? Because it is kind of a traditional workflow with no real understanding as to why.
So I'll comment on that. I think that the way the data is reported to us makes it sort of not very useful, but I think if there's a different way to get it recorded, it would have a benefit for transparency purposes, which I think it was the original intent of the legislature to do that. So I know the efforts are ongoing, and I think what will happen is the bill will be proposed, or as I understand, correct? And then if it gets traction, it gets passed, we'll provide our input from the agency. And then if it passes, and there's the need to do administrative rulemaking when the time comes, we will do so.
Chair Stevens, topic came up today, they just, piqued my curiosity with the best here. We should have a discussion, or perhaps maybe there's a document that's already been created as the list of criteria of decision making, whether two or not the best. What should go into that? I need to message what are the three and the supposed to have a discussion, or we get too far down the road. Sure, like to know a little bit more about what's that criteria.
Jim, can you
that we're
please
going to
speak up?
use to evaluate that decision.
Please speak.
Okay, we'll try it one more time. I think that we, as a board, should develop the criteria, the conversation, of what's involved in the divestiture of Evan Airport. Why would we do it? Have we explored other opportunities and other potential uses that haven't come up? Those should be topics for discussion.
And the good news, it is on this.
Yourself.
So new, but if we're gonna have a February meeting like you did this year, you should know, but from the LCD, how many bills, what bills are being written for the short session. I mean, I'd like to know that as a, that basically bills that are coming up against the social.
Yeah, we usually provide a report, and we give updates.
I didn't see it on last year's thing or it's next year's.
To that end, also, I noticed that we didn't want to mention it during Kristen's budget item because it does appear that there are several kind of pieces of information in there that are vested in some things that are just from last there, comments, which are fine to do because they are, you choose to look at the divestiture, sale of the land or those types of things. I think the one thing that we should probably talk about, including is, obviously you have the laws in there, the statement about self-sufficiency as much as possible. But I think, and we talked about this on the floor here yesterday, the thing that makes this place as sufficient as possible is the non-aviation, non-airside development. So I think the focus on that as part of the overall financial package and strategy, state airport. You have to have the need for, you have to have a need for the land that you have for non-aviation use, but there might be some that will fit in even with some very rural airports. And that little bit of revenue is certainly slows the dial from red to black for a lot of airports. So I think as we move forward and we think about the budgeting documents, we should think not just about, load fees and landing fees and on airport fees, and not just through defense operations, but where there is surplus or excess land and working through the FAA's process to determine that. It's not simple, it's not easy. But once you do, you have that ability to develop, not sell, but to develop that land and not the best the airport of it, but certainly use it to generate revenue that comes back and directly supports the users of the airport. And we tell users here every day, reason rates and charges can stay the way they are is because we generate revenue from placing other revenue, and it helps stabilize the airport as well. So I think a focus on that in the future budget cycle would be very, development of opportunities for revenue would be a good idea as well.
It's been like, this is just an overemphasis on the
Yeah.
all of these conversations, the agency is already spread fairly thin considering what they are tasked with and what they do. You look at the grants and then, the land use, we haven't even talked about the land use inputs that the agency provides to all state and public and some private airports. And so as a board, we need to help them focus and not spread them even thinner and the strategic planning process is a tool that I'm really going to focus on and making sure that these are captured during the process. And, we talked about big long-term services, and I know there was talk about maybe that we had into the mechanism. So I don't want those initiatives that we've discussed in the next years to be a priority, because there is potential opportunity for them to be incorporated into the list.
And then along that conversation, I think one of the things that we have to talk about is additional revenue, because if we can get additional revenue, then we can get a policy option package where we start filling out the correct amount of people for the agency to execute on all of these initiatives. So a real long play, and especially that strategic planning process, is to figure what is the right size, because it's not only to support what we have right now, but what's going to be needed in the future. And then if we can create that revenue to support what's going to be happening, then it becomes an easier conversation. As a state, we have to be very wise in terms of our financial decision making, but at the same time, we have to right size things, because it is as long as we don't have enough staff, we can't fulfill the mission of the agency. So it's finding what can generate that revenue and doing so in a thoughtful way, and find out where we are below what other states are doing, or figure out additional outside revenue sources, as Steve said. So I think there's plenty of opportunity in there, and it's going to take all of us to figure out how that's.
For future.
Did you want the gifts, sort of, next, and do you want it in November, the work session?
When do y'all
Training, it would be about maybe, I don't know, do you want it in the November?
I think that'd be great. We'll just get that one done, sure. That's interested in that.
And Steve's bringing wine for everybody, right?
Yeah.
$100 wine.
I was just gonna say, looking at the schedule and things like that, it also depending on the board makeup and all that, and certainly, and it's your all's board, and obviously it's your thing, and Sarah, and you're from the top, and Eastern side. But we are always willing to host in the metro areas here if it's better for the board, better for the agency. It doesn't always have to be here. We can do it at any of our facilities if it's beneficial to the board and to the agency. You don't even have to ask. We are willing to host. But what it's going to say is just as easy for me, but we're also willing to, I know that we've hosted a lot of board meetings at PBX and students at that facility. So just putting that out there as a schedule for 24 and beyond is part of it. Every use our facilities.
So here, I don't think we want to have a meeting down at our facilities too. Bluntly, but yeah, definitely thank you for that offer. And I think you should definitely have some important, because it's single location, but also have regional, like once every couple of board meetings, just to make sure we're moving around states. We can get input from all over the state as well. So I think primarily, definitely we'll take that on your offer because your facilities are so amazing and nice. So.
Yeah.
That's what we have, so in the UAL.
Yeah.
We don't have to eat food.
Well, it seems like a good time to note that our next meeting is November 2nd, and it is a work session via Teams. And then the next board meeting is December 2nd, and I guess we will be either Salem or Independence or two determined. All right, any other input from staff?
Anything?
So for ethics, the gift training, do you want me to collect questions and then I could pass it over to Charlie? So he's prepared more, or do we just want to ask questions during the training?
We can probably just ask him to train. I know I've seen his, yes, presentation. We are certainly welcome to come. Answer a lot of our questions.
Perfect. And Holly, great job.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks to staff. You know, these are heavy lift, especially when they're doing 2 days in a row. So thank you so much for all of your work and your contributions. Anything else?
We have Alex.
Yeah. Okay, well, with that, I will close this session. Board. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know we've got lunch here too, so feel free to.
All the items are marked with your names on it. I can't vouch for their spelling.